My poor flowers are completely dead, said little Ida. They were so pretty yesterday evening, and now all the leaves are withered and hanging down. Why do they do that? She asked the student sitting on the sofa. She liked him very much because he knew how to tell the most amusing stories and could cut out the prettiest pictures. Hearts, dancing ladies, and castles with doors that actually opened, as well as flowers. He was a delightful student. Why do the flowers look so faded today? She asked again, pointing to her bouquet, which was completely withered. Don't you know what's wrong with them? Said the student. The flowers went to a ball last night, and that's why they are hanging their heads. But flowers can't dance, cried little Ida. Yes, they can, replied the student. When it gets dark and everyone is asleep, they jump around quite happily. They have a ball almost every night. Can children go to these balls? Yes, said the student. Little daisies and lilies of the valley can. Where do the beautiful flowers dance? Asked little Ida. Haven't you often seen the large castle just outside the town gates, where the king lives in the summer and where the beautiful garden is full of flowers? And haven't you fed the swans with bread when they swam toward you? Well, believe me, the flowers have wonderful balls there. I was in that garden yesterday with my mother, said Ida, but all the leaves were off the trees, and there wasn't a single flower left. Where are they? I used to see so many in the summer. They are inside the castle, replied the student. You see, as soon as the king and all the court return to town, the flowers run out of the garden and into the castle. You should see how happy they are. The two most beautiful roses sit on the throne and are called the king and queen. Then all the red coxcombs line up on each side and bow. They are the royal attendants. After that, the pretty flowers come in and there is a grand ball. The blue violets act as little naval cadets and dance with the hyacinths and crocuses, whom they call young ladies. The tulips and tiger lilies are the old ladies who sit and watch the dancing to make sure everything is conducted with order and propriety. But, said little Ida, doesn't anyone get in trouble for dancing in the king's castle? No one really knows about it, said the student. The old caretaker of the castle, who watches over it at night, sometimes comes in. But he carries a huge bunch of keys, and as soon as the flowers hear the keys rattle, they run and hide behind the long curtains and stand very still, just peeking their heads out. Then the old caretaker says, I smell flowers in here, but he can't see them. Oh, that's great, said little Ida, clapping her hands. Would I be able to see these flowers? Yes, said the student. Remember this the next time you go out. If you peek through the window, no doubt you will see them. I did that today, and I saw a long yellow lily lying stretched out on the sofa. She was a court lady. Can the flowers from the botanical gardens go to these balls? Asked Ida. It's such a long distance. Oh yes, said the student, whenever they like, because they can fly. Haven't you seen those beautiful red, white, and yellow butterflies that look like flowers? They were flowers once. They flew off their stalks into the air and flapped their leaves as if they were little wings to make them fly. Then, if they behave well, they get permission to fly around during the day instead of having to sit still on their stems at home, and over time, their leaves turn into real wings. However, it's possible that the flowers in the botanical gardens have never been to the king's palace, so they don't know anything about the merry parties that happen there at night. I'll tell you what to do. The botanical professor who lives nearby will be so surprised. You know him well, don't you? Well, next time you go into his garden, you must tell one of the flowers that there is going to be a grand ball at the castle. Then that flower will tell all the others, and they will fly away to the castle as fast as possible. And when the professor walks into his garden, there won't be a single flower left. How he will wonder what happened to them. But how can one flower tell another? Flowers can't speak. No, certainly not, replied the student. Wait, but they can use signals. Haven't you often seen that when the wind blows, they nod at one another and rustle all their green leaves? Can the professor understand the signals? Asked Ida. Yes, absolutely. One morning he went into his garden and saw a stinging nettle making signals with its leaves to a beautiful red carnation. It was saying, "You are so pretty, I like you very much." But the professor didn't approve of such nonsense, so he slapped the nettle to stop it. Then the leaves, which are its fingers, stung him so sharply that he has never dared to touch a nettle since. Oh, how funny, said Ida, and she laughed. How can anyone put such ideas into a child's head? Said a tiresome lawyer who had come to visit and was sitting on the sofa. He didn't like the student and would grumble whenever he saw him cutting out funny or amusing pictures. Sometimes it would be a man hanging on a gallows holding a heart in his hand as if he had been stealing hearts. Sometimes it was an old witch riding through the air on a broomstick carrying her husband on her nose. But the lawyer didn't like such jokes, and he would say, just as he had now, "How can anyone put such nonsense into a child's head? What absurd imagination!" But to little Ida, all these stories the student told her about the flowers seemed very funny, and she thought about them a lot. The flowers were hanging their heads because they had been dancing all night and were very tired. Most likely they were sick. So she took them into the room where a number of toys lay on a pretty little table, and the table drawer was full of beautiful things. Her doll, Sophie, lay in the doll's bed asleep, and little Ida said to her, "You really must get up, Sophie, and be content to sleep in the drawer tonight. The poor flowers are sick, and they must sleep in your bed. Then perhaps they will get well again." So she took the doll out. Sophie looked quite cross and didn't say a single word, for she was angry about being kicked out of her bed. Ida placed the flowers in the doll's bed and pulled the blanket over them. Then she told them to lie very still and be good while she made some tea for them, so they might be well enough to get up the next morning. And she drew the curtains close around the little bed so the sun wouldn't shine in their eyes. During the whole evening, she couldn't stop thinking about what the student had told her. Before she went to bed herself, she had to peek behind the curtains into the garden where all her mother's beautiful flowers grew: hyacinths, tulips, and many others. Then she whispered to them very softly, "I know you are going to a ball tonight." But the flowers looked as if they didn't understand, and not a leaf moved. Still, Ida felt quite sure she knew all about it. She lay awake a long time after she was in bed, thinking how pretty it would be to see all the beautiful flowers dancing in the king's garden. "I wonder if my flowers have really been there," she said to herself, and then she fell asleep. In the night she woke up. She had been dreaming of the flowers and the student, as well as the tiresome lawyer who criticized him. It was very quiet in Ada's bedroom. The nightlight was burning on the table, and her father and mother were asleep. "I wonder if my flowers are still lying in Sophie's bed," she thought to herself. "I would love to know." She sat up a little and glanced at the door of the room where all her flowers and toys lay. It was partly open, and as she listened, it sounded as if someone in the room was playing the piano, but softer and prettier than she had ever heard before. "Now all the flowers are certainly dancing in there," she thought. "Oh, how much I would love to see them." But she didn't dare move for fear of disturbing her father and mother. If only they would come in here, she thought. But they didn't come, and the music continued to play so beautifully that she couldn't resist any longer. She crept out of her little bed, went softly to the door, and looked into the room. Oh, what a splendid sight it was! There was no nightlight burning, but the room appeared quite bright because the moon shone through the window onto the floor, making it almost like day. All the hyacinths and tulips stood in 2 long rows down the room. Not a single flower remained in the window, and the flower pots were all empty. The flowers were dancing gracefully on the floor, doing turns and holding each other by their long green leaves as they swung around. At the piano sat a large yellow lily, which little Ida was sure she had seen in the summer, for she remembered the student saying she looked very much like Miss Lena, one of Ida's friends. Everyone laughed at him then, but now it seemed to little Ida as if the tall yellow flower really did look like the young lady. She had the exact same mannerisms while playing, bending her long yellow face from side to side and nodding in time to the beautiful music. Then she saw a large purple crocus jump onto the middle of the table where the toys stood, go up to the doll's bed, and pull back the curtains. There lay the sick flowers, but they got up immediately and nodded to the others as a sign that they wanted to dance with them. The old scruffy doll with the broken mouth stood up and bowed to the pretty flowers. They didn't look sick at all now. They jumped about and were very merry, yet none of them noticed little Ida. Presently, it seemed as if something fell from the table. Ida looked that way and saw a thin carnival wand jumping down among the flowers as if it belonged to them. It was, however, very smooth and neat, and a little wax doll with a broad-brimmed hat on her head, like the one the lawyer wore, sat on top of it. The carnival wand hopped about among the flowers on its 3 red stilted legs and stamped quite loudly when it danced the mazurka. The flowers couldn't perform this dance. They were too light to stamp like that. Suddenly, the wax doll riding on the carnival wand seemed to grow larger and taller, and it turned around and said to the paper flowers, "How can you put such things in a child's head? They are all foolish fantasies." And then the doll looked exactly like the lawyer with the broad-brimmed hat, looking just as yellow and cross as he did. But the paper dolls hit him on his thin legs, and he shrank up again and became just a little wax doll. This was very amusing, and Ida couldn't help laughing. The carnival wand went on dancing, and the lawyer was forced to dance too. It was no use. He could make himself big and tall or remain a little wax doll with a large black hat, but he still had to dance. Finally, the other flowers pleaded for him, especially those who had been lying in the doll's bed, and the carnival wand stopped dancing. At the same moment, a loud knocking was heard inside the drawer where Ida's doll Sophie lay with many other toys. Then the scruffy doll ran to the end of the table, laid himself flat on his stomach, and began to pull the drawer out a little way. Then Sophie sat up and looked around, quite astonished. "There must be a ball here tonight," said Sophie. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Will you dance with me?" said the scruffy doll. "You are certainly the right sort to dance with," she said, turning her back on him. Then she sat on the edge of the drawer and thought that perhaps one of the flowers would ask her to dance, but none of them came. Then she coughed, "Ahem, ahem, ahem." But for all that, not one came. The shabby doll now danced all alone and not very badly after all. Since none of the flowers seemed to notice Sophie, she let herself drop from the drawer to the floor to make a very big noise. All the flowers gathered around her immediately and asked if she had hurt herself, especially those who had lain in her bed. But she wasn't hurt at all, and Ida's flowers thanked her for the use of the nice bed and were very kind to her. They led her into the middle of the room, where the moon was shining, and danced with her while all the other flowers formed a circle around them. Then Sophie was very happy and said they could keep her bed. She didn't mind sleeping in the drawer at all. But the flowers thanked her very much and said, "We cannot live long. Tomorrow morning we shall be quite dead. You must tell little Ida to bury us in the garden near the grave of the canary. Then in the summer we shall wake up and be more beautiful than ever." "No, you must not die," said Sophie, kissing the flowers. Then the door of the room opened and a number of beautiful flowers danced in. Ida couldn't imagine where they had come from unless they were the flowers from the king's garden. First came 2 lovely roses with little golden crowns on their heads. These were the king and queen. Beautiful stalks and carnations followed, bowing to everyone present. They also had music with them. Large poppies and peonies used pea pods as instruments and blew into them until they were quite red in the face. The bunches of blue hyacinths and the little white snowdrops jingled their bell-like flowers as if they were real bells. At last the flowers wished each other good night. Then little Ida crept back into her bed and dreamed of everything she had seen. When she got up the next morning, she went quickly to the little table to see if the flowers were still there. She pulled aside the curtains of the little bed. There they all lay, but completely faded, much more so than the day before. Sophie was lying in the drawer where Ida had placed her, but she looked very sleepy. "Do you remember what the flowers told you to say to me?" said little Ida. But Sophie looked quite stupid and didn't say a single word. "You are not kind at all," said Ida, "and yet they all danced with you." Then she took a little paper box painted with beautiful birds and laid the dead flowers inside it. "This shall be your pretty coffin," she said, "and by, when my cousins come to visit me, they will help me bury you out in the garden, so that next summer you may grow up again more beautiful than ever." Her cousins were 2 good-natured boys named James and Adolphus. Their father had given them each a bow and arrow, and they had brought them to show Ida. She told them about the poor flowers that were dead, and as soon as they got permission, they went with her to bury them. The 2 boys walked in front with their crossbows on their shoulders, and little Ida followed, carrying the pretty box containing the dead flowers. They dug a little grave in the garden. Ida kissed her flowers and then laid them, box and all, into the earth. James and Adolphus then fired their crossbows over the grave, as they had neither guns nor cannons.